Hello, my name is Nayeli Carvajal. I will be presenting my poster project on verbal abuse in children. This presentation will outline the definition of verbal abuse and also outline the definition of verbal abuse in children. This presentation will also serve to be informative on the lasting effects of verbal abuse in children that carry on into adulthood. Defining verbal abuse. Verbal abuse is the only type of abuse that can affect everyone. No one is immune to verbal abuse. Now, verbal abuse is any language or behavior that looks to manipulate the victim to doubt their self-worth, their perception, and their natural abilities. This language or behavior can be paired with body language to intensify the abuse. This type of abuse is known as emotional abuse when dealing with children. This is the third most frequently reported form of child abuse, that is after child neglect and physical child abuse. Verbal child abuse accounts for 17% of all child abuse cases. My presentation will detail signs of abuse, verbiage used in abuse, and also the long-term effects of verbal abuse in children that carries on into adulthood. Signs of abuse according to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So I just wanted to quickly just point out that it is very important to be culturally competent in regards to signs of abuse. We also don't want to confuse it with discipline or any type of a cultural upbringing method that is used. When I was researching signs of abuse, I could tell that there were some that were very black and white and some that were not. There is an obvious blurred line in regards to what is abuse and what is not. So the first one that I saw was calling the child by names. That is an obvious sign of abuse. You don't ever want to insult your child or continuously negatively criticize them. The second one was using weapons to threaten to hurt the child. Now, that is where I found the blurred line, because there are some cultures that believe in spanking their children to enforce discipline and instill authority, and there is an obvious sign of abuse if you are, beating a child or continuously using force or weapons to threaten and hurt the child. Now, the third one I saw was punishing the child by withholding affection. I also think that this has a very blurred line. There are ways to discipline a child by using words and communication, expressing feelings such as, I'm not happy with you right now, please give me some time, versus, I'm not happy with you, I don't love you. So I think that there is a very fine line, but also a blurred one in regards to punishing by withholding affection. Obviously, these signs of abuse do have a very harsh effect on a child that will later on affect them as an adult and as a parent themselves. Also, threatening to hurt the child, any type of pet that they might own or a family member, such as, you misbehaved and now I'm going to send your puppy away, or if you don't behave, you won't get to see your grandmother. So those type of threats do ultimately hurt the child, and it also hurts their ability to trust and to believe the words that you're speaking when you are being truthful. The next one is humiliating the child in any kind of way instead of supporting them, such as if they have an accident and you embarrass them, versus supporting them and making sure you train them a way that is suitable for them to learn. The next one is also blaming the child for the abuse. It is very important that that is addressed, because many times as parents, caretakers, or adults, we or the adults that are performing the abuse tend to blame the child and let the child know that they are to blame for their outburst as an adult. And the child does carry that with them, and it affects the ability for them to form relationships and also, again, to trust adults. So they then feel that they are not loved or that they are not wanted because they are causing the abuse that is being done to them. So my next slide is actually going to just outline some verbiage that is used in abuse. The verbiage such as, when you're rejecting a child, or you're blaming the child, or you're humiliating and mocking the child. In this slide, we will detail verbiage that is used in abuse towards children. The first one is in the act of rejecting or threatening a child with abandonment. There are a few here that indicate the verbiage, which is, I'm going to send you away if you don't listen. I wish you had never been born. Go away. As far as blaming the child, a lot of adults do tend to justify their abuse by directly placing blame on the child. For example, I hit you because you don't behave, or you earned this spanking. Also, an important one is the use of sarcasm and mocking the child, such as, you aren't very smart, use common sense. Also, wow, I can't believe you did that. It is very important that as adults, the verbiage that we used is not in correlation with abuse. We want to make sure that our body language does not also encourage the words that we're using. There is a way to redirect a child. There is a way to discipline and to re-educate a child. But obviously, if these words are used in paired with body language, of a child will lose their sense of self-worth. They will question if they are loved, and this will have a dramatic effect on them as a child leading on into adulthood. Long-term effect of verbal abuse. Now, these long-term effects do directly affect children and then carry on into their adulthood, such as delayed development, behavioral aggression, low self-esteem as a child and as an adult. Victims tend to gravitate to unhealthy relationships, also experience uncertainty in making decisions that directly affect how they live their lives as adults. Children and adult victims also place a continued blame on themselves and accept fault for the abuse that they are experiencing. There is an extreme inability to communicate as a child, and therefore that leads into adulthood. Victims also experience being antisocial or having issues with social communication, and also communicating their feelings to other adults, such as a marriage or friendships, and also work relationships. There are a variety of health issues that are also tied with verbal abuse, such as depression, isolation, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, and also post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, ongoing child abuse is the #1 cause of post-traumatic stress disorder and complex PTSD. Victims also tend to self-soothe with alcohol or drug abuse. They develop aggressive and assaultive behaviors because of the memories that they have of the child abuse. And also, ultimately, they could face becoming an abuser themselves if treatment is not in place for them. There are other health issues such as ongoing migraines, headaches, bowel issues such as diarrhea and constipation. Victims also develop ulcers due to stress, health conditions due to stress, stammering when they speak. Another interesting fact here is that health issues in regards to food, they develop unhealthy relationships with food to comfort them. They tend to overeat, or they don't eat in order to punish themselves. There are just so many different long-term effects of verbal abuse. These were just a few that I selected here to pinpoint that directly affect children that are abused.